My wife started decorating for the holidays, and I wanted to make something fun that we could hang on our front door. Originally, I was going to make something that said Happy Halloween, but we don't really decorate specifically for Halloween too much, so I decided to go another direction. So let's go to the computer, and I'll quickly talk a little bit about the design process and show you what I came up with. So here we are in VCarve to work on this design. Let me show you exactly how I did it. I have two pieces of MDF. One is 30 by 25, as you can see down here, and the other one is 30 by 18. I'll use the 30 by 25 piece to cut out the pumpkin and the 30 by 18 piece to cut out the words. So the first thing I did is I came over here to sheets, and I made two sheets, and I just named them 30 by 18 and 30 by 25, and I set the X and Y size to match those measurements. And then I started with the 30 by 25 piece to do my overall design. This will allow me to properly size my pumpkin and then properly lay out all the words so it looks good to me. So if we come back up here to drawing, and I have my 30 by 25 sheet highlighted. So the first thing I did is I found a bitmap. I just did a Google search for free pumpkin bitmaps, and literally thousands of them come up. And this is the one I chose. So once you have the bitmap you want imported, you just come over here to the Trace Bitmap tool, and you select your bitmap. You can mess with these settings, but how they're set just by default usually works just fine. If your bitmap is a nice black and white image, that is. You hit preview and you see it will give you a vector or an outline of that bitmap. And it's this outline that you can use to generate a toolpath. So I'll turn this off and I will show you the actual one that I already created that I used to do the design. So if I turn my pumpkin layer on, you can see there's my bitmap that I'm using to generate my toolpath with. And then once I have this vector created and sized how I want it, I just come over here to the draw text tool, click on that, and you just start typing, and you can see over here, it'll just generate the text. And then you can change your font to anything you want, really. And of course, you can move it around, you can resize it to make it look however you want. We'll get rid of that for now, and we'll clean this up. I'll get rid of this, and then I will show you the actual text that I generated, and this is what I'm going to use. One tip I would give you when you're making things like this, a sign or a plaque, is to use different font styles. Using two different fonts here to do my text, I think it gives it a lot more visual interest and just makes it more appealing to look at. If you go back in my previous videos and look at other plaques and signs I've made, you'll see I always use at least two different styles of fonts in the things I make. Like I said, I think it just makes them nicer to look at. So I did happy and y'all in one font and then fall in a separate font. And I do each of these words separately so I can choose them individually. I can resize them, move them around, do whatever I want with them to get them in just the right location so it looks just right to my eye. And then once I have them all looking how I want, now I have to move them so they all fit onto my smaller piece of wood so I can cut them out. And to do that, I just turn off my pumpkin, I choose all the words, and I copy them to my other sheet over here. Now when they copy over, they look like they do on this sheet, and that's another reason to do them individually is I could grab them one at a time. I can flip them around, do whatever I want with them, just as long as I don't resize them. I don't want to change the size I have over here. I just change the orientation so they all fit on my 30 by 18 sheet, and I can cut them all out of one sheet. Then once I'm happy with everything, I just click on this icon up here, and that takes me over to my toolpath view, and I create one toolpath to cut out the pumpkin and a second toolpath to cut out the words. And if we click on this icon right here, this is edit toolpath. It'll show you exactly what this toolpath is doing. I have a start depth of 0, which is the top of the material. I have a cut depth of 0.75 inches, so it'll cut completely through my material. I'm doing this carve with a 1/8 inch upcut bit. I run this bit at 100 inches per minute, and I'm doing this in 6 passes. This is pretty conservative. I could probably bump this up quite a bit and get this cut done quicker, but that's where it's set right now. And I have this set to cut on the outside of my vector. If I cut it on the inside of the line or on the line, it'll reduce the size of my words overall, and I don't want that. And then I've added tabs. You can see over here I've added a bunch of tabs, all these little yellow T's are where the tabs are. And I add the tabs because I'm just going to screw this piece of wood right to my spoil board. So if the inside of this A, for instance, gets cut out and there's no tabs holding this cutout piece in place, it'll get loose. It could get caught up in the bit. It could damage the bit. It could break the bit. It could damage your carve. So these tabs just hold everything in place. And they're pretty easy just to pop out after the carve. You do a little sanding to clean up the tab, and it's no problem. And then you always want to name your toolpath. That's right down here. I name this Happy Fall. You could just name it words or letters, anything that makes sense to you. And then in the name, I always put the size bit I'm using and the size of the material. That way, if I call up this carve, 6 or 8 months from now and I want to do another one of these, I can just look at the name of the carve and I know what bit to use. I know what size material that this carve was made for. So that's just a quick little reminder to me on what to use if I want to do this carve again in the future. Then once all these parameters are all set how you want, you just hit calculate and it generates the toolpath you see over here. And to test it out, you can go to the 3D view. That gives you what your sheet material will look like. You come here to preview toolpath, and I have this toolpath highlighted. Preview visible toolpath, you click that, and it simulates the carve. And as you can see, it's cut through my material and all my tabs are in place. And once I run my previews and I'm happy with everything, I just save the toolpaths to my computer. And from my laptop right here that I do this design on, I can send that right to my CNC machine. So I'm going to make that Happy Fall door hanger, but I haven't completely abandoned Halloween. I have a little project that I designed for the laser. Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so let me just minimize VCarve and bring up Lightburn. And this is what I came up for my little Halloween project. I'm going to engrave this on a piece of thin plywood, and I'm going to cut it out in some kind of pattern. I haven't really decided 100% yet as far as the overall look I'll be going for, but this will be the text and the pictures. And the idea for this is I'll set it next to a candy bowl in the house for people to walk by and grab their Snickers or Twix or whatever they want. And this is just a fun font that is in Lightburn that I chose. And then again, I went online and I found a couple free vectors of some different bats and just put them in here. Kind of rotated them, positioned them how I thought they would look good. So I have the CNC all set up for the pumpkin carve. I'm going to go ahead and get that started. And then while that's going, I'm going to set up the laser and get that engraving while this is carving. So there's the pumpkin shape all cut out. Just got to do a little cleanup on it. So the laser, as I'm sure you can hear in the background, is about 80% done. This is all set up to cut out the words for my sign. So I'm going to get that loaded up and get this going. All right, guys, all the cutting is done. I'm back in the main shop, and now I just have to do some sanding and cleanup on these pieces and get them ready for paint. And I'm not going to pretend that you want to sit there and watch me sand wood. So I'm going to shut the camera off. I'll put some music on, and I'll come back when this is all done. All right, so that's all done. It only took about 15 minutes. These sanding blocks and these various files made really short work of it. So the next thing to do is to paint all this. I'm going to start with a coat of primer on everything, and then I'll put the color on. But it's getting a little late in the evening, so that's going to have to wait until tomorrow. So I'm going to pack this up for now. I will see you back here in a day or two for painting and assembly. Now this is a pretty small project, so I could just brush the paint on, but I'm going to use my sprayer. I like using it. It gives me a nice even coat of paint. It lays the paint on really quickly, and cleaning this up is a breeze, so I have no problems using it even on a smaller project like this. All right, I'll let that dry for a little bit while I go work on the candy sign. So I'm just going to rough shape a pencil line on here, kind of approximately what I want the shape to be, and then cut it out with the jigsaw and go from there. This is pretty cheap plywood, so it made kind of a ragged cut, but that's fine. It's going to kind of go with the little, the rustic theme I'm going for. So I have a couple different stains here I'm going to just experiment with on a piece of scrap. Actually, just this pine one brought out, the black that's on the rag was kind of coming through. I'm like, oh, that kind of looks cool like that. I'll show it to you here. So I did that. It added that light brown color, but then those streaks of black, kind of a diluted black. That's just from being on the rag and soaking through. That's really what I want. I want it to almost look like it's dirty. Yeah, pretty good. That was easy. Now I'll let this dry before I try to burn the edge, and that's good timing because it's just about time to go put another coat of paint on that pumpkin. So I have all my pieces painted and I'm ready to glue this together. I'm just going to glue it up with some CA glue. I've done projects like this in the past, and CA glue has worked great for gluing these together. All right, so I'm just going to get all the pieces situated on here in a way that I think looks good, and then I will just take them off one at a time and glue them on. And then the last thing I do to get ready to glue this up is, once I'm all laid out and I like the way it looks, I will go through and I'll put dots with Sharpie where I want my glue to be. And that way I can just put a little dot of CA glue on all my marks and I know it's all in the right place. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'll do this. CA glue cures pretty quickly. I'll give that a couple minutes, and then I'll do this word and move my weight over. All right, so it's all glued up and looking good. Putting those marks on there of where you want to put your little dabs of glue really makes the glue up a lot quicker and easier. So the last thing to do is just spray on a couple coats of spar urethane. This is my go-to finish for outdoor projects. It's really good protection against moisture and sunlight. So I'll put a few coats on the back side first, then flip it over and do the front. So the sign is all done. Here it is hanging on my front door. I think it looks really nice. The colors contrast against the black door nicely, and it stands out pretty good. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it inspired you to get out in your shop and make something. Remember to stay safe, and I'll see you for the next one.